So looking at the daily time frame, we have the Nasdaq on the left, the S&P on the right. We can still expect these equal highs that were outlined last night to be hit for the Nasdaq, and also these relative equal highs for the S&P. This is still the draw on liquidity, and regarding this right here, some of you might think this is a TPD. Now, if we turn the settlement price, because I get so many questions about the settlement price, if we turn it on for both of the assets, we can see it is not a TPD. Now, is the settlement price the reason why it's not a TPD? No. If the settlement price is turned on or off, say if it's turned on, it looks like a TPD is there, but if it's turned off, a TPD isn't there, because sometimes that will happen. It is just a lower probability TPD. But the reason why this is not a TPD right here is if we look between the close of candle 1 and the open of candle 3, we can see there is not a cracking correlation there. So irregardless of the settlement price, whether it's turned on, whether it's turned off, if there is no cracking correlation with the close of candle 1 and the open of candle 3, it is not a TPD. So dropping down to the hourly time frame, we have today's range marked out. We have buy side liquidity resting here, sell side liquidity resting down here. Now, preferably, I would like to see the S&P drop down in here, come take this low, and then we can see a little bit of stabilization and then continuation higher. So I'd like to see the Nasdaq create a failure swing and the S&P preferably take the low, but we still need to see a bullish cracking correlation before continuation higher. Actually, we'll go back to that. FOMC delivered extremely lackluster today, which caught me off guard. I thought we were going to expand a little bit higher, but instead it was just extremely low probability and lackluster. So whenever you have a big news event like that deliver a small range, like it did right here, typically you can expect to see the next couple of days or the following days for the rest of the week deliver higher probability price action. And we will see Thursday and Friday. Thursday and Friday should be more clear than what price has been offering so far, because Monday was kind of iffy. Tuesday surprisingly delivered good price action on consumer confidence, which is the first time I've seen that in a big while. Today delivered extremely lackluster. So Thursday and Friday we can expect better conditions, and you guys already know what to look for. If we drop down in discount in the Dow and then on the S&P, take this low, continuation higher, bam. What time are you looking for it at? 8:30. Why 8:30? Because that's whenever the news releases. So looking at the Forex triad, we have the dollar, the euro, and the Great British pound. We can expect to see one of these assets, either the dollar take out this sell side, or the euro and the pound take the buy side liquidity. We can expect one of these assets to take its respective liquidity in due time. So that is what I'm looking at on the currencies market. I'm not really too interested in doing anything in there. As you guys can see, it's just been really back and forth with the dollar. Dollar hasn't really offered too much, so we just have to wait for price to tip its hand before trading in that direction. And this one was very, very short. There wasn't much to talk about today. So now we can go ahead and get started on your guys' favorite part, the Q&A. I didn't even have to say it first. Already got a question. In Forex, we had a quarterly cycle SMT and a 6-hour TPD. Would you say that is equal to a weekly TPD? We will see. depending on how Friday closes in Forex. But yes, they're up there. Both of those are. Did you trade today? Yes. I was long pre-FOMC because of something else which I did not outline in yesterday's price review. And you guys should not be trading before big news events like that if you aren't extremely advanced and if you don't know what you're doing. Could you show your entry? We will if price does what I think it will do, then yes. Because I don't want you guys to think my entries are what you should be going for, because there are some things that will come way, way, way down the line. When we look at a 1 a.m. TPD on Forex, do we ignore DXY since it doesn't align? As long as it aligns with the daily cycle, so that previous candle, if the high or low is in correlation with the quarter, and then that next quarter opens up, irregardless of the candles, as long as there is a cracking correlation there to confirm it, that's all that matters. I went short today in futures. We had weekly cycle SMT and a 2 a.m. TPD at the new week opening gap, plus a 5 a.m. TPD and breaker to confirm the entry. Nice. So is the true reversal 2 SMTs, or can it also be a true reversal if it had an SMT plus TPD, or must it always be 2 SMTs to be considered a true reversal? It can be an SMT and a TPD, and if that TPD has an SMT, then bam. But yes, to answer your question, yes. You always need 2 reasons for a true reversal. Once you have those 2 reasons, you know there is a high probability that the high or low of whatever you're trading is in. Why do in some TPDs candle 2 doesn't get souped? I expect lower time frame SMT between candle 2 and candle 3, but price rallies without doing it. Sometimes if there's an SMT skip, that is the reason. But sometimes it will just continue without any real reason. Especially if it's governed by a higher time frame SMT, which I teach you guys that candle 2 should be souped, and more times than not, it does. But in some scenarios, it will just run with an SMT skip. From what I see, higher time frame narrative is simply just higher time frame SMT or TPD. Is that we are using most times? Yes. Are we able to tell when a 3 drives will happen before it does? Yes. After seeing it a bunch of times, you'll be able to get like a sixth sense, and you'll be able to pretty much anticipate it. Especially if it happens at a key level, which I don't think we've gotten into key levels yet. But once we get into that, that's whenever things get really good. Will we learn any new entry model for this coming month? Yes, I will teach the reversal model. is the reversal model also the universal model? In the sense of it works on every single time frame or every single cycle? Yes. Can you please explain why you picked that breaker on the S&P? Yes. So if we look, we can see price traded higher, or not higher, what am I saying? Price traded lower, and then higher, lower, higher, and then lower. This right here, I don't know why TradingView has this update now to where it completely removes the pointer whenever you select a tool, but we can see it trades lower, breaks higher, breaks lower again. So we have a higher high and then lower low. A breaker doesn't have to be a single candle. Now, more times than not, you will see the highest candle be most respected, but that entire range, this is a breaker. And if we take that same logic with the NASDAQ, we can see that the NASDAQ failed to trade into this breaker, while the S&P did trade into this breaker. So this is a cracking correlation between PD arrays. Why wouldn't we use that high? Because you want it to be the same on both assets. And we're getting into this right now. So why was the S&P the one that traded deeper into the breaker while the NASDAQ left this gap unfilled and didn't trade into this breaker whatsoever? Look at this candle right here. If you watched last night's live stream, what was this candle? The TPD, exactly. Compare the close, or the closes. NASDAQ, where did NASDAQ close compared to the S&P? NASDAQ closed most in the range of the down close candle. Close, yes. So you see, we'll use the opening price of this candle because it's the one that created the SMT. And note, this opening price doesn't hold any big significance in my opinion. We're just using this to measure something. So looking at the NASDAQ, we can see, look of how this candle right here, which was the TPD, look how close it closed to this opening price. Now look at the S&P. See how far away it closed to that opening price? So from that right there, what can we expect if we're anticipating this to hold and we form this entry technique? What are we expecting? NQ stronger to the upside. Exactly. You can see which asset will be stronger, which asset will be weaker, depending on the cycle you're trading from the TPD. And this is basic TPD information right here. So why is this the breaker? On the S&P, trade down, and we form a Kraken correlation between the PD array itself. And a breaker is just that entire range of candles. it's not just a singular candle, but more times than not, if you're bullish, you'll see that highest candle be the one that's most respected. But a breaker is the entire range. Bias for tomorrow. It's already recorded. You'll be able to see it. Will this breaker divergence always be there? You'll see it. As long as there's a TPD confirming the SMT, and then that breaker is there, whichever asset is stronger, you'll see it be more sensitive to the breaker and explode more. The asset that's weaker, you'll see that retrace deeper. Where would you place your stop loss in this scenario? If you were to trade the S&P, you could just enter right here and then have your stop loss either at the low of the breaker, or if you feel cheeky, you could put it a little bit below the midpoint of that entire candle range. And yes, if you guys look close enough, you'll see there is another cracking correlation inside of that. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. I've realized by backtesting that when we have a high probability 15-minute TPD, I can just enter at the close of candle 2 and the open of candle 3 and put my stop loss above and below the wick. Yes, you can. But give it some room just in case a lower time frame cracking correlation forms. How do you enter using just the TPD? Especially if you're at a key level, which we'll get into that. Especially if you're at a key level, if you see a SMT and then a TPD confirming it, you can just boom, enter right at the open of candle 3. Lower time frame TPDs forming into higher time frame PD arrays are high probability, right? Correct. Today we had bearish weekly cycle SMT, a 4-hour TPD, and daily cycle hidden SMT, and a 15-minute TPD. I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, that you initially thought the bearish weekly cycle SMT was a SMT market structure shift. At what point in the sequence did you change your mind to come to the conclusion that today would be bearish and that weekly cycle SMT was in fact not a market structure shift? So, something about me, whenever I think the market is likely to go to a specific area, and this was also taught in the most recent, no, it wasn't the most recent, the week before, or the Saturday before the one that just passed. If I'm calling in a direction, because at the beginning of the stream I showed these highs right here, and also last night I outlined these highs. Any bearish signature, I don't take that into account, because price is automatically, in my opinion, predetermined to go to a specific area. So if something is opposing that, I don't see it as a reversal. And if it does cause price to oppose the higher time frame narrative, then what are we waiting for? We're waiting for it to retrace and then form the real thing that it wants to form before it goes where we want to see it go. And that's why it's important that you see me outline these things before they happen. Yes, if anything, yes, that would just give me more of a reason to believe that it's likely to go in a certain direction. But you have to get very good at knowing what's going on these higher time frames. And that's exactly what I'm guiding you through and showing you how to get to these conclusions and how to get there. Perky, you can put that in the questions thing on WAP and then I'll get back to you. Probably after this live stream, I'll get back to everybody on the questions tab in WAP. Been very, very, very busy recently, so I've been slacking on your guys' questions. I apologize for that. Dealing with a lot of back end things on for Day's group. Three drive pattern is when we have an SMT but no confirmation, and then the news comes in and violates it, and then probably form another SMT. Yes. If you see two drives and then news hasn't came out yet, once news comes out, you can expect to see that third drive. I'll just keep it on the screen. Same thing outlined last night. That's still what we are looking for. If price reaches your target, can we get a trade recap? Yes, I can show you how I got to the conclusion. When you are backtesting, how long does it take you to get through a month's worth of data? Probably like an hour, hour and a half. Haven't really backtested as much as I used to, though. I don't really backtest that much anymore. Once you get to an understanding of knowing where the market is likely to draw to, and you get really, really good at it, the work is pretty much done. Now it's just reading the tape and then slowly improving off of that. Tape reading and watching it play out is far, far, far more beneficial than just backtesting itself. And some of you this month have already experienced that. Because I remember at the beginning you guys were like, can we see more examples? Can we see more examples? But actually seeing it called out live in front of you and then watching it play out, that's the best example right there. That's your analysis on Forex. We will see. I personally need to wait for a little bit longer before I get a big macro perspective on the Forex markets. That's why I'm not too interested in them right now. So sequential SMT plus TPD doesn't require a second stage? No. Especially if it forms within a key level. When will you show TPD part 4? There probably will not be a TPD part 4, like an actual video, but everything forward is building on the foundation. And if you watch everything that's coming forward and then go back and look at the TPD videos, be like, oh my goodness, it makes so much more sense now. But I have to slowly bring you down the path. Did you see ICT scandal on IMP24 node? Yes. ICT is a funny guy. That's crazy though if it was actually true what happened. Yes. Time to grind. Yes. If a monthly is a monthly TBD powerful, or doesn't it matter? It is. Any time frame TBD is important. What happened with ICT? If you know, you know. And if you don't know, you can go do your own research on it. So you only stick to monthly, weekly, and daily cycle, or can you create your own triad? You can create your own triad time frames with what I'm teaching you. You have your narrative time frame, and then you have your higher time frame and lower time frame to work within that. So if you wanted to use the daily cycle as your narrative time frame, you could work within the 90-minute cycle and the micro cycle and find scalps all day long. Will you be teaching us news correlations with quarters and cycles? Yes, that is coming. Because news is correlated to cycles. So a monthly SMT and a daily TPD is enough? Yes. But typically if you have that, you will see a Kraken correlation form at that daily TPD. It's once you get down to those lower time frame, like the daily cycle, 90-minute cycle, that's whenever you don't really need that SMT to occur on the TPD. If it's already governed by an SMT. So if I have SMT on the narrative time frame and then SMT on the higher time frame, is that a true reversal? Yes. And then on your lower time frame, what are you doing? Looking for all the reasons to be a buyer. If it drops down into a premium or discount array, depending on if you're bearish or bullish, boom, buy or sell. And then enter in the position and you're trading within the direction. How can we expect the sequential SMT confirmation by TBD or by lower time frame SMT? So it depends on really the cycles that you're on. As I said just a second ago, once you start getting to those lower time frames, like the hourly time frame and the 15-minute time frame, if you have a daily cycle SMT and a 15-minute TPD, then you don't really need a lower time frame SMT, especially if you have narrative behind it. It's just those high, like what the other person was saying, if you have a monthly SMT and then a daily TPD, generally price will form a lower time frame SMT confirming it. But it's those lower time frames to where since price is moving so quick, it doesn't really need that lower time frame SMT to do anything. Do you use Arctic or Triad indicators? No, I don't use any indicators. And the only reason I even use this down here is for you guys. Because I've been with these concepts for so long that my eyes just automatically draw towards old quarters and old highs and lows formed in previous quarters. A PSP order block is powerful, right? Very powerful. Very, very, very good for reversals as well. Will we learn to trade on the seconds time frame? So let me ask you, what would be the benefit of that? To show off. I'm teaching you how to rinse and repeat the weekly and daily cycle, which is far more than enough. Because I'm teaching you, okay, showing off, it's cool. You can use these concepts on these lower time frames. By all means, it's there. You can go look, it's there. But what I'm mainly teaching you guys is a stable or another stable source of income. To where you know, okay, more times than not, price is going to do this. I have my entry technique. Boom, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And I'm not promising you can get rich off of this, but you can relieve some stress that you have with things in life that require money. If you get really good at this and you respect risk and you just rinse and repeat the weekly cycle or daily cycle over and over and over again, and you have even just a 70% win rate, you can alleviate a lot of stress that you might have when it comes to money. I get you, I was joking. No. 1 second model coming soon. Can you show an example of a true order block? We'll get into that. And will we be learning about this in depth? A PSP order block is powerful. That is the reversal model. What is the difference between a PSP and a TPD? What I shared with at the beginning. People would think that this is a PSP or a precision candle. We don't see this as a PSP or precision candle or a TPD because there is no cracking correlation between candle 3 or not candle 3 between candle 1 and candle 3. But people that don't know about TPD and just know about PSPs and precision candles, they would see this as a PSP and then do something, and then if it's not in the favor of what's actually going on, they would get wrecked. Do you trade full-time? Now I do, yes. And I have another business that I'm probably going to open up soon. How many charts or screens do you look at while trading? I have 3 monitors, but majority of my entries now, it's been a long day, but a majority of my entries now are just limit orders. But if I do day trade, then I just, on my left monitor, I have the Forex triad. On my middle monitor, I have the NASDAQ and the S&P, just like you have it right here. And then on my monitor that's on the right, I just have the Dow. Oh, so we won't need to enter from the breaker on the reversal model. We'll be able to enter from the TPD order block, yes. And that's what I was mentioning in a previous live stream, I believe it was. There's a way to get in at the highest point and the lowest point. But first you have to identify, okay, the higher low of X is in. I only look at bonds for higher time frame, which we'll get into that. Do you trade using props? If so, which would you recommend? Prop firms are only good for starting out and to build capital for a broker, because prop firms are unstable or unsustainable in the long run, just due to the fact their business model is built off of people losing, because their drawdown rules are so strict, and it's inevitable that you're going to have a period of drawdown. That's just the reality of trading. And they have the rules set to where if you do end up having a losing streak, then you have such little room to work with to where it's very, very, very difficult to dig yourself out of it. And with the leverage you're provided, there's just no point in putting that much effort into trying to keep those accounts alive. So it just entices gambling in the long run. Now, for having skin in the game and actually having emotion behind your trades, I think they're extremely beneficial, especially if you're starting out. But that's not a destination. The goal is to use prop firms, get your capital, and then deposit into a broker to where you can withdraw at any time you want. we've already been here for 37 minutes almost. So I think we're gonna time got away from me, but I think we're gonna call it a stream on that one. So hopefully you guys found this one insightful. I will speak with you all again Friday night, as you guys already know. And time to grind, don't worry. Just ask it in the questions on the WAP, and I'll get all of those covered as soon as we get off of this. So hopefully you guys found this one insightful. I will speak with you all again Friday night.